On Christmas Day, my dad said, "Wait for me at the airport. I will pick you up soon." I landed in Chicago at 2:12 p.m., expecting nothing more than a warm embrace, some homemade eggnog, and maybe a slice of my dad's famous pecan pie. The air was cold, the snow was falling softly like it always does in December, and families were reuniting all around me. Kids screamed in joy, mothers cried, husbands and wives kissed. But I stood alone at Terminal C, Gate 17, suitcase by my side, and a gift bag filled with carefully wrapped presents in my hand. At 2:30, I texted him, no reply. At 3:15, I called. He didn't answer. At 4:00, I called again, then again and again, 22 times. Each time it rang went to voicemail, and I waited, wondering if maybe the roads were icy or if the old Buick had broken down again. He had sounded calm on the phone yesterday. Told me to book the flight, said he missed me, said Christmas wouldn't be Christmas without me. He even asked me to send the money early this time. Said it would help pay off the last bit of mortgage before the new year. I sent it. $40,000. All I had in savings. But I didn't care. It was for family. And when he said he'd pick me up himself, I believed him. I wanted to believe him. So I stood there for hours, watching other daughters run into their father's arms, watching grandparents twirl toddlers, watching the world have the holiday I had pictured for myself. At 7:15 p.m., I stopped calling. At 9:40, the terminal was nearly empty. The last flight had come in. The airport janitors were pushing brooms around near the sliding doors. I sat alone with my coat wrapped tight around me, holding a bag full of gifts no one seemed to want. And that was the moment I knew no one was coming. Not because of snow, not because of traffic, but because someone had made a choice. A very deliberate, very painful choice. I was not wanted, not expected, not needed. Not even on Christmas Day. My name is Olivia Carter. I am 32 years old, single, and until last year I believed I had a decent relationship with my family. I live in Seattle and work as an independent financial advisor. My life is neat, structured, quiet. I rent a one-bedroom apartment with hardwood floors and a balcony that faces the sound. My mornings start with green tea. My nights end with spreadsheets or mystery novels. I am not the loud one at the party, not the one who posts selfies or holiday outfits. I am the one who remembers birthdays, sends flowers, asks if people got home safe. The quiet one, the dependable one, the one who always answers when someone calls. My mother died when I was 8. I remember her as soft hands, chamomile perfume, and the sound of wind chimes outside our trailer window. After she passed, it was just the three of us, Dad, my older brother Nathan, and me. Dad worked in heating and cooling repairs. Nathan was always the charming one, the favorite. He had the smile, the loud laugh, the football jacket. I had the grades. While Nathan was out breaking windows and sneaking beer. I stayed home with a library book and our dog Max. And when Dad got laid off in my sophomore year of high school, it was me who picked up extra shifts at the diner. I paid for Nathan's traffic fines. I helped Dad pay for gas. I did it because I believe that's what family does. We carry each other. We show up. And for a long time, I thought maybe if I just kept giving, they would see me as more than just the family wallet. But the truth is, I became convenient, useful. The person you call when your credit card gets declined, when your car gets towed, when the mortgage is 3 months behind. Over the years, I transferred money for broken water heaters, surprise dental bills, last-minute tuition for Nathan's kid, and once, even a Vegas bailout I wasn't allowed to ask questions about. Still, every December I flew home. I bought gifts. I cooked breakfast. I paid for takeout when Dad didn't feel like making dinner. I smiled through it all. I told myself this year would be different, that Dad would thank me, that Nathan would hug me like he used to, that maybe this year they would look at me and not see a bank account with legs. But the truth is, they never did. The calls always came with just one more favor. The thank yous were short distracted and always followed by, "Can you send it before Friday?" Last week, Dad called. He said he missed me, said he couldn't wait to see me. He joked that I was the only woman in his life who never let him down. Then casually, as if he were asking for a cup of coffee, he said, "Hey, do you think you could wire over that money early this year?" Said he wanted to pay off the house before Christmas. "I hate starting a new year with debt," he said. So I did. $40,000. I pulled from every account I had my business reserve, my personal savings, even a portion of my emergency fund. It hurt, but I told myself it was worth it, that this year would feel different. I told myself that same lie so many times it didn't even sting anymore. The flight to Chicago was uneventful. I wore a new wool coat I'd bought on sale and packed gifts in soft paper with ribbons I tied by hand. I brought Nathan a custom whiskey set, Dad a leather recliner pillow for his bad back, and for his dog Scout the most expensive organic dog treats I could find. Because that's what I do. I plan. I anticipate. I give. Even when no one asks. Even when they forget to say thank you. Even when they stop seeing me as a person. The morning of my flight, I woke up before dawn, double-checked every item in my luggage, and stood in front of my apartment mirror for a long moment before leaving. I looked tired, not from lack of sleep, but from years of hoping for something small and warm from people who always seemed cold. Still I smiled. Still I hoped. The Uber arrived at 5:45 a.m. sharp. I watched the Seattle skyline fade behind me as we headed to the airport, the sky still wrapped in gray. At SeaTac, the lines were long but moved quickly. I boarded early window seat row 18. I held the small bag on my lap like a fragile promise. It had a silver ribbon and held a velvet box with a bracelet I had custom made for my niece Chloe, Nathan's daughter. The bracelet was engraved with her initials and a small quote, "You are braver than you believe." It cost more than my rent, but I'd convinced myself that gifts could do what words never could: buy affection, repair cracks, earn belonging. The flight lasted 4 hours. I didn't sleep. I watched old holiday films on the seatback screen, laughed at the right moments, but my chest was tight the entire time. I pictured Dad waiting at the gate, his denim jacket zipped up, arms wide, maybe holding a thermos of hot cocoa. I imagined Nathan leaning on the car horn outside, yelling at me to hurry up. The plane landed at 2:12 p.m. The air was biting. Inside the terminal, the sounds of holiday joy surrounded me. Reunion after reunion unfolded like movie scenes. I stood beside the baggage carousel with my coat still unzipped, not feeling the cold, just scanning the crowd. My phone buzzed with a message from Dad. "Running late. Just wait near the arrivals exit. Should be there soon." I replied, "Okay." Then I waited. I waited as the bag circled, as children jumped into parents' arms, as carolers passed through the terminal in Santa hats singing off-key but cheerfully. I sat on a bench and opened my phone again. Nothing. I scrolled back through our text. Last week, he'd sent me photos of the house. The tree in the corner was already up. Chloe had made paper snowflakes. "It'll be great this year," he wrote. "Nathan's cooking. You'll finally get a break." I smiled at that. A break? That was all I ever wanted. To be welcomed, to be seen, to rest for once without guilt. Around 4:00 p.m., I called Dad. It rang, then went to voicemail. "Hey, just checking in. Let me know when you're close." I tried again at 4:30, then 5:00. I texted Nathan. No response. I even tried Chloe, though she never replied to my messages. The minutes stretched into hours. The crowd thinned. New flights landed. I moved from the bench to a metal chair closer to the pickup doors, hoping that maybe I'd been in the wrong spot. Maybe they were circling the terminal. Maybe there was traffic. I looked up the highway conditions. The roads were clear. No snowstorms, no delays. By 6:30, I knew something was wrong. Not catastrophically wrong, not a crash or emergency. Emotionally wrong, deliberately wrong. And yet, I kept waiting. Because that's what you do when you love someone. You give them the benefit of the doubt even when all the evidence tells you not to. I called again and again. I counted 15 missed calls by 7:15, then 20. My battery dropped to 12%. I plugged it into a wall outlet and sat on the cold tile floor. A little boy nearby asked his mother why that lady looked sad. She said, "She's probably just tired, honey." Tired. That word again. By 8:00, I stood up and walked outside, the wind slicing through my coat. I stared down the empty road leading to the passenger pickup area and wondered how many lies fit into the word soon. At 9:00, the airport staff began turning off the holiday music. A janitor swept around me, humming a carol under his breath. I looked down at the gift bag still clutched in my hand. The silver ribbon had come undone. I retied it, tight this time. I opened my banking app. The transfer had cleared. $40,000. Gone. The account showed zero balance. I closed the app. I stared out into the night-empty road stretching before me, and finally I let the thought in. They were never coming. Not because they forgot, not because something happened, but because they didn't want me there. Not this year. Maybe not any year. And maybe never again. I stayed at the airport because I couldn't quite accept what was happening. Not yet. I moved back inside around 9:30 p.m. when the wind made my fingers sting through my gloves. The cafe near Gate C6 was still open barely. I bought a black coffee and sat near the window overlooking the pickup loop, every sip burning but not warming me. My phone showed no new messages, no calls. Nothing. 22 attempts now. The last one sent straight to voicemail without ringing. I knew that sign. They had silenced my number. Outside, headlights passed, blinked, vanished. Inside, the space felt like a shell. Just me and a few stranded passengers scrolling their phones or dozing on their luggage. The smell of disinfectant drifted faintly from the janitor's cart. I watched a young couple across from me take turns bouncing a baby to keep it from crying. They looked exhausted but connected, present. I envied that. I watched the girl laugh at something the man whispered. I imagined myself as her years ago, back when I thought maybe one day I'd have that too. But life had happened differently. I became the one who stayed back to support others. While Nathan had gone through 2 marriages and 3 career attempts, I had quietly saved, planned, and helped keep everything afloat. Even when he didn't call for months, I still sent birthday gifts for Chloe. Still picked up when Dad needed just a little help. The last Christmas I visited, Dad had said, "It's so nice when you're here. The house feels less stressed." I remember thinking that was a strange way to say, "I love you." But maybe that was all I ever was to them. Stress relief, a temporary solution to their chronic disorder of irresponsibility. I scrolled through old photos on my phone. One from 3 years ago, Dad in the kitchen wearing a red apron, Nathan pretending to throw flour at Chloe and me, in the background barely visible holding a pot with both hands. A helper. An afterthought. I stared at the time. 10:07 p.m. Christmas Day. No messages. The bracelet box in my purse felt heavier somehow, like it knew it wouldn't reach its intended wrist. I opened it, traced the engraving with my finger, then shut it again. I wondered if Chloe would even notice it missing. Probably not. I stood up and made my way toward the rental car area, only to find it closed. I walked to the rideshare lot shivering despite my coat. An Uber would be expensive this late, and I still hadn't booked a hotel. I hesitated, then walked back into the terminal pacing. That's when I did something stupid. I called Dad one more time, straight to voicemail. "Hi, it's me. I don't know what happened, but I'm still at the airport. It's late now. I've waited almost 8 hours. If you're not coming, just... I wish you had told me. Merry Christmas." My voice cracked near the end. I hung up before tears spilled, sat back down, wiped my face with my sleeve. I looked around at the empty chairs and wondered what was worse, being forgotten or being ignored on purpose. By 11 Azure, my battery was nearly dead. I pulled my suitcase closer and leaned against the wall, staring blankly at the digital arrival board still cycling through flight numbers. A security guard passed and asked if I was okay. I nodded, lying. "Just waiting on family," I said. He gave a sympathetic smile. "They'll be here soon," he said. I smiled back, too tired to explain. Midnight came. I stood up and walked outside again. The snow was softer now, silent. A fresh layer had dusted the pavement. I pulled my coat tighter and took out my phone one last time. No calls, no messages, not from Dad, not from Nathan, not even a single emoji from Chloe. I opened my banking app again. $40,000, cleared, gone. I scrolled to my transfer history. Over the past 6 years, I had sent more than $240,000 to Dad and Nathan combined. Student loans, mortgage help, legal fees. Chloe's braces, new appliances, emergency car repairs, all of it categorized under family. I stared at the numbers for a long time. Then I closed the app and stood there in the cold until I couldn't feel my toes. When the taxi pulled up, the driver leaned over to unlock the door. "Where to?" he asked. I hesitated, then gave him the address of my childhood home, the place I had not been invited to, the place that somehow still felt like it might hold an explanation, or at least a confirmation. Somewhere deep inside me, I still hoped this was all a misunderstanding, a cruel mistake, or maybe just bad timing. I needed to see it with my own eyes, needed to know if I had really been erased from their holiday on purpose. The car pulled away from the terminal. I didn't look back. The ride from the airport to the old neighborhood took about 40 minutes. I sat in the back of the taxi watching the city blur past block by block, street by street, until the lights thinned out and the quiet tree-lined roads of suburban Chicago began to unfold outside the window. Snow blanketed the lawns, wreaths hung on every door, and warm lights twinkled behind curtains. It looked exactly like a Christmas card, peaceful, perfect, but the tightness in my chest grew with every mile. The driver didn't speak much, just asked once if I needed help with directions. I gave him the address without thinking. 1834 Briarwood Lane, a house I knew like the back of my hand, a house where I learned to ride a bike in the driveway, where Mom used to hum while folding laundry, where Dad built a makeshift treehouse in the backyard that Nathan promptly fell out of. My childhood lived there. My whole family's story was rooted in that foundation. And tonight, for the first time, it felt foreign. As the car turned onto the street, I sat up straighter. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. From a distance, I saw the light's first soft yellow spilling out from the living room windows. Then I heard it, laughter, clear, loud, unmistakable. The taxi slowed in front of the house. I leaned closer to the window. Through the curtains, I saw shadows moving, glasses being lifted, hands gesturing as if in mid-toast. The dining room table was full, plates, candles, even a ham in the center, just like always. Chloe ran through the hallway wearing a red dress and reindeer antlers. Nathan stood beside Dad near the kitchen island, carving slices of ham and laughing about something. Music played faintly, Bing Crosby's White Christmas. It was a scene from my own memory, only I wasn't in it. There were 8 chairs at the table, all full. No empty plate waiting for me, no extra napkin, no space at all. I didn't belong in that picture anymore. I had been edited out. I stared for a long time, willing someone to notice, hoping Chloe would glance toward the window or Dad would suddenly realize something was missing. But no one did. No one came to the door. No one looked anxious or concerned. They weren't late. They weren't stuck in traffic. They were exactly where they had planned to be all along. And I had never been part of that plan. The taxi driver turned to look at me. "This it?" he asked. I swallowed hard, nodded. "Yes, just give me a moment." He waited quietly as I gathered my things. I opened the door slowly, feeling the weight of the cold night press against me. The air was sharp, but not as sharp as the realization I had just stepped into. I stood on the sidewalk for a long time, clutching my gift bag and carry-on, staring at the wreath on the front door. It had a gold ribbon and a tiny wooden sign that said "Home for the Holidays." I wanted to laugh, but it caught in my throat. Every light in the house glowed warm. Every room held people I had known all my life, and not one of them had thought to save a seat for me. Not one. I took one step forward, then stopped. My boots crunched softly in the snow. I set the gift bag down at the base of the stairs. I stared at it. Inside was the bracelet for Chloe, a luxury shaving kit for Nathan, a limited edition baseball book for Dad that I had to bid for online. All of it selected with care, with love. All of it now meaningless. I turned around and walked back to the taxi. The driver raised an eyebrow. "Changed your mind?" I nodded. "Take me downtown." "You sure?" he asked gently. "It's Christmas." "Exactly," I said, and I shut the door behind me. We drove a few blocks before I changed my mind again. Something inside me refused to let go. I asked the driver to turn around and drop me at the corner near the house. I paid in cash, thanked him, and watched the red taillights vanish into the snow. I stood under a leafless oak tree across the street, staring at the house. I wasn't ready to walk away. Not yet. I needed confirmation. Not just of what they'd done, but why. I crept along the side of the property, staying low behind the row of hedges Dad had always threatened to trim, but never did. The kitchen window was slightly open, just enough to let sound escape. Inside, I heard the clatter of plates and the laughter of my father and brother. Then their voices rose clearer. "She really wired it?" Nathan asked, incredulous. 40 grand, Dad said with a low chuckle. "Same as last time." She didn't even question it. "Unbelievable," Nathan said. "You think she'll still come by later?" "God, I hope not," Dad muttered. "You know what she's like when she gets here. All polite and quiet and watching everything. Sucks the energy out of the room." "Well, you told her to wait at the airport, right?" Nathan asked, sounding amused. "Told her we were coming," Dad said. "Didn't say when." They both laughed. The sound hit me like a slap. I sank lower behind the bushes, the cold from the ground seeping into my knees. I should have walked away. I should have left and never looked back. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not after that. Inside their conversation turned darker. Nathan spoke first. "You think she suspects?" "She never does," Dad replied. "That's her problem. She always believes the best in people, always wants to be needed. She still thinks we care," Nathan added with a sneer. "It's pathetic. Let her keep thinking that Dad said, as long as she keeps sending money." Then he added, "When I kick the bucket, she'll get what's left anyway. Might as well use her generosity while it's useful." I felt the world shift under me. My father, my blood, saw me not as a daughter, not even as family, but as an asset, a tool, a line of credit. My hands clenched. My heart thudded in my ears. I waited a moment hoping for something, anything to contradict what I just heard, but instead I heard Nathan again. "After the next wire, we cut her off. Yeah, just stop responding." "Yeah," Dad agreed. "She'll take the hint eventually." "She always does," Nathan said, voice full of mockery. "That's the beauty of Olivia. She disappears when ignored. And she'll blame herself," Dad added. "She always does that too." The knife in my chest twisted. The way they knew me, analyzed me, used my own compassion like a weapon. They had made a strategy out of my love, a business plan out of my kindness. I rose slowly, heart-numb fingers tingling. I took one last look through the window. Chloe was in the living room now unwrapping a gift, while Nathan's second wife poured wine and giggled at something on her phone. A perfect little holiday. Just not for me. I walked away without looking back. I crossed the street, passing the spot where the taxi had dropped me. Every step was heavy, but something inside me had shifted, hardened, broken, but not weak. I was done. Not just disappointed, not just sad. Done. All those years, all those transfers, all those holidays I saved with my checkbook. Every unspoken thank you. Every ignored birthday. Every empty chair that was never meant for me. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the folded bank receipts. Over $240,000 across 6 years. I stared at the numbers. Then I ripped the paper in half, tossed it into a nearby trash can, and walked toward the main road. A hotel loomed a few blocks ahead. I booked a room on my phone walking as the snow began to fall heavier. At the front desk, the woman greeted me kindly. "Merry Christmas," she said. "Checking in?" "Yes," I replied, "just for the night." I took the elevator to the 6th floor. Inside the room, I sank onto the bed without even taking off my coat. I stared at the ceiling, my ears still echoing with their voices. She disappears when ignored. Not this time. Not ever again. I sat up, pulled out my laptop, and opened my financial files. I clicked on every shared account. Closed. I froze every automatic payment. Canceled. I opened an email to my lawyer. "Hi, Craig. I need to discuss the family trust, and I want to make changes to the beneficiaries immediately." I hit send. Then I opened my notebook and wrote just 2 lines. "The most dangerous person is the one you mistake for weak, and the kindest person you mistreat will remember forever." Lying on the hotel bed, I stared at the ceiling and let the weight of everything sink in. For the first time in years, I let myself remember. Not just the recent lies, but the pattern that had always been there, quietly chipping away at whatever love I had left for them. It started small. When I was 16, Nathan had totaled his car driving drunk. Dad didn't have the money to cover the damage. They told me they'd figure something out, but I remember the quiet conversation at dinner, how Nathan looked at me and said, "Liv, you've got that savings account right." From the diner job I had saved for college. Every single tip counted, but I gave it to them. I told myself it was an emergency. He cried when I handed him the envelope. I thought that meant something. It didn't. 2 years later, during my sophomore year in college, Dad called. He was behind on the mortgage. He didn't want to lose the house Mom had loved. Just a little help to get through the winter, he said. I wired him $5,000. I skipped meals to make up the gap. He never paid it back. The pattern repeated. Nathan's failed business venture, Chloe's private school tuition, Dad's surprise medical bills that turned out to be a dental implant he wanted for cosmetic reasons. Every time I wired money without hesitation. I didn't even ask for receipts. I convinced myself it was what good daughters did. I told myself they loved me, just didn't know how to say it. But looking back now in the harsh fluorescent light of the hotel room, I saw it clearly. They never asked how I was doing. Not once. No one asked if I was dating anyone, if I was healthy, if I was happy. They only called when they needed something. And I was always there. Reliable Olivia, the quiet one, the responsible one, the woman who paid bills without complaint, who flew across the country each year hoping maybe this time they'd make room for her at the table. I remembered one Christmas 3 years ago. I arrived to find that Nathan and his family had taken over the guest room. Dad gave me an air mattress and a blanket, said, "You don't mind?" Right? I smiled and said it was fine. Then I spent the night sleeping on the floor of the laundry room, curled between a basket of unfolded clothes and a heater that rattled every 30 minutes. I cried quietly that night, not because I was uncomfortable, but because I finally realized my comfort didn't matter to them. My presence was an afterthought, my sacrifices invisible. Then there was the time Nathan asked me for help with a down payment on a house. Just a loan, he said. You'll get it back in 6 months. I gave him $25,000. He bought a luxury car the next month. When I asked about the repayment, he ghosted me for a year. Dad said, "Don't be petty. It's family." I learned that family was their favorite word when they wanted something, a shield they used to protect themselves from accountability. I gave them the benefit of the doubt again and again, and every time I paid the price. I remembered Chloe's 9th birthday. I sent a handmade photo album with pictures from every year of her life, complete with captions and little notes. I spent weeks on it. She never thanked me. Nathan texted. She liked the gift with a thumbs up emoji. That was it. No one in that house ever said thank you unless it was attached to a request for more. The most hurtful memory, though, wasn't even about money. It was the day Mom's headstone was installed. I flew in from Seattle just to be there. Brought flowers, stood quietly beside the grave, trying to find words to say to the woman I still missed every day. Nathan didn't show. Dad was late. When he arrived, he asked me if I could pick up the bill for the engraving. "You make more than me," he said. "It's only fair." Only fair. 2 words that had haunted me ever since. Nothing about our family had ever been fair. I gave everything. They gave nothing. And somehow they convinced me that was normal, that I should be grateful they even let me show up. I looked at the clock. It was 2:08 a.m. I hadn't eaten dinner. My stomach growled, but I didn't move. Instead, I opened my email again and started listing all the financial transactions I had made for them over the years. Every dollar, every transfer, every wire. The total shocked me. More than $250,000. That was a down payment on a house. That was 10 international vacations. That was a future I had given up without even realizing it. I opened a blank document and began writing a new title, Everything You Never Thanked Me For. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but it felt like a start. A reclamation. A reckoning. The room was silent except for the sound of the heating unit clicking on. I sat back in the desk chair staring at the blinking cursor and thought, no more. I'm not your savior. I'm not your wallet. I'm not your secret weapon. I'm done. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. The sky outside the hotel window was still dark, but my mind was clear, sharper than it had been in years. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused, cold, detached, and determined. I had spent the entire night replaying every word I heard outside that kitchen window, every past betrayal, every lie wrapped in holiday bows. I didn't cry. I didn't rant. Instead, I opened my laptop and began executing a plan I had once drafted out of paranoia but never thought I'd need. It was a simple document labeled Contingency Family. I had started it 3 years ago after Nathan borrowed money for the third time without paying me back. I didn't know then if I'd ever use it, but some part of me had prepared for this moment. I moved through the list efficiently. First, I logged into the bank accounts. I had set up most of Dad's online finances when he retired. He never bothered to change the passwords. I froze his checking and savings accounts, both of which had my name listed as an emergency cosigner. I canceled the automatic payments for the car and utilities. I called the mortgage lender and requested a copy of the payoff status, knowing full well it was already covered by my last wire. But I flagged the account for review anyway. Then I moved on to Nathan's. Years ago, when his second startup failed, I had co-signed on a consolidation loan so he wouldn't lose his credit score. He still owed $18,000. I contacted the creditor and revoked my co-signer guarantee, citing fraud and breach of agreement. The process would take time, but it would flag the account for review and freeze future borrowing. I opened Chloe's education fund. I had set up the account as a custodial plan under my name, with her listed as beneficiary. I canceled the automatic monthly deposit. Then I initiated a transfer of the entire balance, $72,400, into a private investment account. It would now be used for something else. I didn't owe her anything. She never acknowledged a single birthday card. I opened a new travel rewards credit card and booked a one-way business class flight to Lisbon for January 4th. Then I reserved a private apartment in the Alfama district for 3 months. I paid in full. I emailed my lawyer, Craig, asking for a complete update of my will and power of attorney. Remove all current beneficiaries, I wrote, including but not limited to my father, Harold Carter, my brother, Nathan Carter, and any dependents related to them. I want every asset redirected to the organizations listed in the attached file. The file included 3 charities, a scholarship fund for first-generation college students, and the local women's shelter I had volunteered at in Seattle. After that, I made one last call. It was to a financial journalist named Maya Ellis, who hosted a podcast about financial abuse within families. I had met her at a conference once and kept her card. "I think I have a story you might want," I said. "It's about love money and what happens when people mistake generosity for weakness." We scheduled a recording session for the following week. By the time I finished, the sun was rising. I closed the laptop, got dressed, and walked down to the hotel cafe for breakfast. The waitress smiled and asked if I wanted cream in my coffee. "No," I said. "Black." Just like my outlook now. I sat in a corner booth and watched the city wake up. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Nathan. "Hey, we didn't see you yesterday. Everything okay?" A minute later, another message followed. "Dad said you were coming, but we didn't know when." Then a third, "Let me know if you're still in town." I didn't respond. I let them sit in silence. At 10:37 a.m., Dad called. I didn't pick up. At 10:38, he called again. Then texted, "Call me. We need to talk." There was no apology, just urgency. Likely about the frozen accounts. Likely about the mortgage updates and canceled payments. At noon, a new message came in from Chloe's mom, Nathan's ex-wife. "Did you shut down the education fund?" Chloe's tuition check bounced. Still no apology. Just blame. Just the usual entitlement dressed as confusion. I ate my breakfast slowly. I ordered a second coffee. Then I went back to my room, packed my bags, checked out early, and left the front desk a tip that was more than I'd given my father on his birthday last year. By 3:00 p.m., I was sitting at a different hotel with a spa and a city view, letting someone massage away the years of stress I had carried for people who thought so little of me. I opened my email one more time. A final message from Dad sat unread. "Olivia, please. I don't know what's going on, but we need to fix it. I'm sorry if we hurt you. We didn't mean to. Let's just talk." I read it twice, then deleted it. I didn't need to reply. My silence would say everything. They had made their choices. I was just finally making mine. The difference was mine came with clarity, purpose, and freedom. Theirs came with consequences. 3 weeks later, I sat on the balcony of a sunlit apartment in Lisbon, sipping coffee and watching the orange rooftops stretch into the horizon. The air was cool but bright, the kind of air that made your lungs feel brand new. Below, people moved through cobbled streets carrying bread, fresh flowers, and laughter. I had arrived just 2 days before, but already the city felt more like home than the place I'd grown up in. My phone lay face down on the table beside me. I hadn't checked it in hours. I didn't need to. The world back home had kept spinning, but I had stepped off that axis. I had built a new one for myself. The last message I received from Nathan came 5 days after I left. "I don't know what you think you heard, but you're overreacting. Family fights happen. You don't just blow up your whole life over one night." I read it. I didn't reply. A few days later, Dad sent another transfer request labeled urgent. I flagged the email as spam. Chloe's school left me a voicemail saying they'd lost contact with her sponsor. I deleted it, and then nothing. The silence settled like fresh snow, peaceful, undisturbed. I spent my mornings walking through alleys painted with street art, eating pastéis de nata, and sipping espresso in cafes where no one knew my name. In the afternoons, I journaled, read novels, and made plans for the year ahead. I signed up for a Portuguese language class. I started outlining a memoir. I even called Maya, the journalist, and told her I was ready to share my story in full. "People need to hear this," she said, "especially women who've spent their whole lives being the strong one." I agreed. For the first time, I didn't feel afraid of being seen. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't the helper in the background. I was the protagonist of my own life. The money I had once funneled into other people's chaos was now building my future. The trust fund for Chloe was gone, but I had started a new one for myself. I called it the Freedom Fund. Every dollar I earned went into it. Not to fix someone else's mistakes, not to buy love, just to protect my peace. I had rewritten my will, removed every last name that once made me feel small. My assets would now go to people and places that healed, not hurt, that saw my worth without me having to prove it. I thought about the gift bag I had left on the front steps of my father's house that night. I wondered if they ever opened it, if they even noticed. It didn't matter. The gifts weren't for them anymore. They were symbols of who I used to be, of the years I spent trying to earn a seat at a table that was never mine. I didn't want that seat anymore. I had built my own table, and there was room at it only for people who treated me with love, respect, and truth. Christmas had passed, and with it so had the last remnants of who they thought I was. I know now that kindness without boundaries becomes currency in the hands of the wrong people. That generosity without discernment isn't virtue, it's fuel for exploitation. And that sometimes the only way to heal is to walk away and let the silence do the talking. If you are someone who's always been the giver, the peacemaker, the one who covers the bill and fills the silence, and holds the pieces of a broken family together, I want to tell you something that took me 32 years to learn. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to reclaim your time, your money, your energy, your story. You are allowed to stop chasing validation from people who never planned to give it. The world will not collapse if you stop showing up for people who never showed up for you. It will get quieter, yes, but also freer, lighter, cleaner. I don't regret what I gave. I regret how long I waited to realize they never saw me. Not really, not beyond what I could provide. But now they can no longer reach me. Not through guilt, not through obligation, not through shared blood or borrowed history. I used to believe family meant forever. Now I know better. Family is not who you're born to. It's who shows up. It's who claps when you win, who sits beside you when you cry, who remembers your coffee order, who tells the truth even when it's hard. And if you haven't found that yet, I promise you still can. It's not too late. For the first time in my life, I didn't go home for Christmas. I found peace instead. And that I've learned is the greatest gift I've ever given myself.